Hi, this is Frank Schaefer, and I want to thank you for sharing my YouTube videos and for watching them. And I would ask you, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps what I'm doing and get the word out. Thank you. Hi, this is Frank Schaefer, and it's very early in the morning. I've got my bathrobe on. Why? Because I live a normal life. And that brings up a point. I watched an interview with Vice President Kamala Harris conducted by Stephanie Rule on MSNBC. And I was really struck by something. Normality. The fact of the matter is, what we've all been missing is the reason I will enthusiastically be voting for Kamala Harris. Normality. Let me explain the word to you. Normality is not puffed up arrogance. Normality is not self-serving. Normality means that later today, I will be picking up a grandchild from school. I will be hugging my wife, Jeannie, who I've been with for 54 years. I'll be following up on a medical appointment to get some preemptive treatment of this pre-skin cancer growth on my head with a doctor who is normal and kind and doing his job and went to school so he could understand how to help me and remove this. I will be counting on my local grocery store at Market Basket to have the things I need to feed my family, including Sunday lunch with my grandchildren. I will be walking down my street with my dog Zip, expecting my neighbors to say hello to me and to be polite and to ask after my health. And I will ask after them sincerely and mean it. And when my neighbor's house a few years ago caught on fire because his wood stove in his shed next to the house malfunctioned, the pipe fell out of the chimney and place caught on fire and his house was burned. It was normal for my neighbors and for me to help him put plywood over his windows to keep the weather out until the insurers could come and assess the damage. You see, the fact of the matter is the great crime Donald Trump has committed and the great crime of J.D. Vance and their billionaire supporters like Elon Musk and others is that they have destroyed the fabric of the normality of our lives. The sense that I got from Kamala Harris watching her interview, her decency, the fact that she was interested in boring, ordinary policies that make our lives better, just like the federal workers who make sure that Jeannie and I get our Social Security payments, that when I get this precancerous growth here treated on my head, that Medicare will kick in, that I'll hear those wonderful words when I check in at the surgeon's office like I did the other day, and the secretary looked up and very politely and kindly said, "There's no copay on this, you're covered." What blessed words. Normality. The last thing I wanted in the surgeon's office was some abnormal, puffed up pitch about how great he was, that only I know how to do this. You know, in any walk of life we care about, whether it's who we're married to, who we love, the people we work with, the teachers that teach our children and grandchildren, the people I've gotten to know up at Market Basket who check out my groceries and that I stand and talk with, because a woman up there who I've known for years, who's probably in her 70s now, still likes the job there. She's working at the checkout counter. She's tired of working in the meat packing part of the plant because her hands were getting so cold. Normality, discussions of normal life. How are your grandchildren? Hey, how are your hands doing? I'm going to take this off in 2 procedures, and we'll freeze the part we take out and send it down to the pathologist, who is also a normal person just doing her job, who will figure out how deep they should go when they cut and then put this back together again. You know, what we depend on in our lives should be applied to politics. It was such a relief to watch the common, ordinary decency of Kamala Harris, her sense of humor about herself, the way she answered questions, not pretending to know everything, but humbly putting forth her ideas for us. The fact that she doesn't intend to, for instance, have some democratic version of Project 2025 of hard-nosed ideology to push the country in a certain direction, but just take on the problems that we face in the economy and healthcare and everything else that makes up the fabric of our normal lives, transportation, jobs, the availability of housing, how to help a young couple get started. You know, recently I helped a recently married grandson of mine and his wife, wonderful people. He works in regenerative farming. He tries to restore land that has been abused. And she's working on green energy policy as a consultant. And they're getting going and they'd like to get a home. And as the grandfather in the family, the normal thing for me to do was to help them, not grandstand about how great I am and everything I've learned through my life and my wisdom and all the rest of this, but just to reach out and help them get going. That's why I worked hard. That's why even as an author, you know, it's a very flighty business writing books. My memoir, Crazy for God, happened to do well. And a couple of their books I've written, like Keeping Faith, a father-son story about love in the United States Marine Corps, but my son did well. But, you know, a lot of things I've done have just come and gone and disappeared. But that's normal life. And the fact that I'm a person who depends on a fabric of care provided by the federal government at this stage of my life at 72 with annoying little health problems like this, and or my wife 3 years ago who had a heart attack and went down to a local hospital that really took care of her. The normality of expectation of service and care, that's what Kamala Harris represents. You know, don't you just want to take a deep breath and wake up one morning and assume things are okay? Do you remember what that felt like? Before COVID, before Trump, before the grandstanding of this crazy billionaire who's bought Twitter and turned it into X, before these tech bros decided to remake our lives without our permission and now resist all control and are backing Trump because they think by sucking up to him and contributing to his campaign, these Bitcoin fraudsters, all these people he's in bed with, you know, there's a word for this. It's abnormal. You know, if I lived this way in my own life, I would have gone broke 1,000 times. I would have lost my home. I would have lost my marriage. I would be going to a surgeon that tells me he's got the only solution and tries to sell me a silver memorial coin and maybe a Bible and tell me lies about my condition that profit him. Or maybe mishandle it altogether the way Trump did with the COVID pandemic. And tens of thousands of Americans died as a result because of his abnormality. These are abnormal people. I know the word normal is out of fashion when it comes to gender and all these other things. But you know, normality is something we all treasure. In fact, my friends who are gay and who are married treasure the normality of that relationship, the bond of that care they get in that relationship. That's why they fought for equal rights and the right to marry. That's what we want for our children. We want them to be able to go to normal schools that function and get through a day without a shooter bursting in because of the gun lobby that controls the Republican Party, has put weapons of mass destruction in the hands of unstable young men, in the hands of even children. That somehow manhood is this kind of weird vision of abnormality. Grabbing someone, to use his words, by the pussy and getting away with it. This woman-hating juggernaut led by people like Elon Musk these days, who talks to Taylor Swift, this beautiful music star, and says, I will give you a child, as a threat, because she has the temerity to support normality, a world in which she can sing without being threatened by terrorists, a world in which she can endorse a political candidate, a normal political candidate that simply wants to bring stability and decency and kindness and humility to the office. You know, I urge you to watch that interview with Stephanie Ruhle and Kamala Harris, not just for what Kamala Harris sensibly says about policy, but agree or disagree with policy. You look at her, and if you heard that conversation on the street corner, you'd say, oh, she'd make a good neighbor. That's a normal person. That's a kind person with good instincts and a sense of humor, and does not have an inflated ego, and really wants to serve and cares about us. And she won't get everything right, but it won't be this abnormal lashing out. Threats against her political opponents, threats against journalists, threats against democracy. If you watch that interview, could you imagine Kamala Harris rejecting the results of an election, or considering herself above the law and committing so many crimes that a Republican-controlled Supreme Court appointed by him has to step in and say anything you do as an official action, we will excuse, even if it's a crime, even if it includes murder, literally? Coming up with his list of threats, supported by Bitcoin operators, this Ponzi scheme run by fraudsters, the likes of Elon Musk, who want to enrich themselves and are so arrogant that they want to be abnormal and be above the law. Don't control me. We're such geniuses. Allow tech to do whatever it wants to your teenagers, to your children, to the world, to heighten terrorist threats everywhere because we know so much. We are the future. These tech fools who are abnormal. They're not us. They're not you and me. These billionaires who don't want to be regulated. And so they're going to back Trump, not because they like him. No one likes Trump, but because he will serve their interests. They can become Trump whisperers, like the Project 2025 radical Roman Catholics who want to roll back the right of contraceptives, not just abortion. They've already won that. These are not normal people. These are people who count on us becoming hysterical, angry, lashing out, unable to function, reacting to their weird nationalist program, Make America Great Again. That's the language of abnormality. The language of normality is today I'll get up and take care of my grandchildren. Today I'll do a little work on my new book. Today I'll cook lunch for Jeannie. And because she's had a heart attack and we've changed our diet, I'll be roasting some more vegetables of the beautiful squash that I've grown in my garden, that I roast up in the oven with olive oil and onions and capers and turn into this wonderful delight. Because you see, that's normality. Taking care of your wife that you love is normal. Wanting stability in your life instead of hysterics. Taking a deep breath and just having another lovely day. I'll be going to my grandson's soccer match this afternoon. And what I crave there is the normality of Kamala Harris and the fact that she's a good neighbor to us. She will make a good president because you can tell she has the humility to learn. You know, I care a lot less about her policies right now, although I tend to like them, than I do about the fact of just a character judgment. I'm 72 and I've learned a few things. And one of the things I know is you want people who are able to learn from their experiences instead of just forging ahead with some fixed idea. Trump can never learn anything because he's just about himself. These tech bros will never learn anything because they're just about thinking they're above the rest of us, more intelligent. They don't want to be regulated, and so they don't want anybody in office who's a normal person. They want someone they can manipulate through appealing to their ego, which is the only reason they're interested in helping Donald Trump. But you see, Kamala Harris is a normal, decent human being. I know that doesn't sound like a huge claim, but think about it. Compared to Trump and his supporters and Project 2025 and these radical right-wing Roman Catholics, who, by the way, do not represent the majority of Roman Catholics in history or in the present. And they're like the bad popes who would try to crush the little city-states of Italy in the 14th century so they could maintain power. But you see, normal Roman Catholics are live and let live, decent human beings who make good neighbors and who will benefit from having Kamala Harris in the White House. Because wouldn't it be great to wake up one morning and not have to think about politics? I'm so tired of this. I am so tired of having to try to work just to get back to square one. You know, there's a kind of a household job I hate. There's a kind I love. I build with my own hands. I cast concrete and I build things, and I love to do stuff. But I don't like the repairs where all the work you do just gets back to where you were before the gutter got clogged and the side of your house was leaking because the water was sheeting down because you had allowed it to clog and hadn't cleaned it out that year. And now you do all that work in a rainstorm to get back to square one. That's the tedium of being a homeowner, as you know, if you have done similar jobs. You know, what we all crave is to just get through each day as a normal human being without having to deal with hysterical people on the right and their stupid conspiracy theories. Don't get a vaccination. They've got, you know, chips from the government in them or something to track you. You know, these things that just boggle the mind to keep track of. The abnormality of this online life that people have looking at their telephones instead of just reading the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. You know, the Wall Street Journal is run by Rupert Murdoch. The editorial page is from the right, but it's filled with good journalists. If you're on the right, just read the Wall Street Journal, get some actual news for change. Or the Washington Post or the Boston Globe or the New York Times or the Economist magazine. It doesn't matter if they have a rightward tilt or not. Of course they have an opinion, but they're normal journalists who are just interested in the currency of truth. We've got to recenter the gravity of the way we think about things and reject the abnormality of the Trump years and all these people with their MAGA hats and post flags and running around, conspiracy theories, all this nonsense. Aren't you sick of it? We have a chance to turn the page. Her name is Kamala Harris. Forget the fact that she'd be the second Black president and the first woman president. That's of no interest to me at all. I have another question. Would she make a normal, decent neighbor? Or would she be standing at her fence screaming crazy things at you? Or throwing trash in your yard the way Donald Trump has done to our country? He's trashed our whole country. He's trashed the whole dialogue of politics. He didn't accept an election result. His followers brought a hangman's noose to execute the vice president for treason because he actually was obeying the law. They're trying to rig the election right now by using the people on local level who are Republican fanatics, MAGA followers, to undermine the electoral process. They've rigged our Supreme Court to deny 50% of our population, actually 52% of our population, the women, their most basic rights of physical, spiritual, psychological autonomy in their body. And now Project 2025 wants to take away even the access to contraceptives. Do you understand that this is not normal? Kamala Harris is a normal, decent human being upon whom we can count for her ability to learn from experiences without putting herself, her ego, or her ambition first. She's normal, which means we maybe wake up one morning after the election, can take a deep breath, and have a few normal days where we can concentrate on love and service and care of others. Kamala Harris is interested in love, service, and caring for others. She is a normal, decent human being. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to vote for her and a future in which my children and my 5 grandchildren have a chance to thrive as decent, normal, caring, unthreatened human beings that find joy in their relationship with other people and in serving those around them, which is where real joy is found. It's not about me. It's about the people I love. That's what I've learned in this life. Kamala Harris knows that. Her greatest strength is the intelligent normality of her person that will learn, because of course the real challenge of the presidency is what can you learn in office and how will you grow? And she will learn and grow in office, and you can trust her instincts because she is a normal, decent human being and not an egomaniacal weirdo, one-off oddity. That would be a joke that no polite person would mention or make fun of in any other circumstance, but the fact that this fool wants to govern and misgovern our country again as an exercise in egomaniacal self-defense against these days going to prison as a convicted felon. And he has the backing of the corrupt, Republican-controlled, extremist Supreme Court, and is a threat to our future and a threat to you and me. And we have a very clear choice. Thank God for Kamala Harris. And for anyone out there listening to me talking here who craves just having another ordinary, decent day of care and love and normality. My name is Frank Shea.